ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa says he's impressed by the newly elected KZN chair, Siboniso Duma, who pledged not to purge his political opponents. There are concerns that Sihle Zikalala will not finish his term as premier of the province after losing out on the chairman position this weekend. Ramaphosa gave the closing address at the elective conference, which saw delegates booing him when he arrived. The question now is, what impact will this conference have on the organization's leadership? For this analysis, let's bring in Professor Dirk, who's a political analyst joining us via our video link this morning. Prof, always great to get your take on these issues. Thanks very much indeed for your time. There's already also been discussions around how different really this crop of leaders is in KwaZulu-Natal that's been recently elected, especially in a context where already they're being framed, as it were, these leaders under the slate, the Taliban, as opponents to Sihle Zikalala and by extension opponents to Cyril Ramaphosa. Do you reckon the politics in KZN will change?
Well, I think to some extent it is a repetition of what we've seen around about 2017, where it was the balance within the province was quite similar to what it has become now, except for Sihle Zikalala, who was then the provincial chairperson. But the fact that there is that the province is divided, I would say about 60% pro-Zuma, 40% pro-Ramaphosa, is quite similar to the period around about the previous national conference. I think what we also have to be careful about is to say, well, given the fact that the new leadership of the province is to a large extent pro-President Zuma, means that the whole province is pro-President Zuma. I think that will be a mistake in order to interpret it like that. Like many of the other provinces, the Eastern Cape, for example, Mpumalanga and so on, there are splits within those provinces, or divisions, in the sense that both sides have significant support. So in this sense, it is not as if this is a major setback for President Ramaphosa. I think what he failed to do is to make some significant progress in KwaZulu-Natal. At the same time, I think it is an indication that the Zikalala leadership of the past 5 years have not really succeeded. Given, for example, the electoral defeats that the ANC or decline that the ANC suffered in KwaZulu-Natal. In 2019, for example, with the provincial election, they lost more than 10% of their support. And I think this is the price that the Zikalala leadership is paying now.
Yeah, already the commentariat also speaking about Zikalala being punished for how Zuma's arrest was actually handled. It was also quite interesting to see, well into the afternoon yesterday, this uncertainty about whether or not Cyril Ramaphosa will speak and whether or not his decision not to speak would be a sign of KZN being this no-go zone, as it were. We now know he apparently rejigged his schedule, as he said, and decided to go ahead and say something. Do you reckon that was the right decision? Because nobody was surprised when he was being booed the way he was.
Yes, I think from a Ramaphosa perspective, ultimately it is the best decision for him. Because if he didn't go there, or he couldn't appear there because of the resistance against him, it would have been more of a setback to him. It would have been, as you indicated, type of a no-go situation that developed there. The fact that he was, in a sense, almost in inverted commas, protected by the new provincial chairperson, Siboniso Duma, is a very significant one in terms also of saying that, despite the fact that we are within the ANC on different sides, the idea of unifying now again is something that is very important. The fact that the new provincial chairperson also said that there's not going to be a purge of the Zikalala supporters immediately or in the near future is another significant element, which I think is similar to provinces like, for example, Limpopo and others also. So those are good signs in the sense. The fact that the conference itself was relatively well organized. There wasn't all these issues about delegates and branches and credential matters, as in some of the other provinces like in Gauteng or Eastern Cape. It's another indication that the province is in a better state than some of the other provinces. So there are negative aspects in terms of, from a Ramaphosa perspective, the fact that, as I said, that he didn't really make any significant progress. But at the same time, for the ANC in general, it is also a good sign. But I think what is also significant is that it now gives a base for Sihle Zikalala as a possible presidential candidate. But the main uncertainty still is what will be his support in the other provinces. So it is a launching pad for him, this conference specifically, and it gives us, in a sense, more clarity of what is going to unfold like closer to the national conference.
All right, and that's certainly what I was hoping to get your take on very quickly, Prof. I mean, not all provinces have had their elective conferences just yet, but we'd always said that KZN is important as the largest region for the governing party. Are you getting a clearer picture of exactly how December is likely to unfold?
Yes, I think what we are seeing now is the emergence of Sihle Zikalala as a clear candidate, but the test is going to be whether he will have support in other provinces. Any successful candidate in the top 6 must have the support of at least 3 big provinces. KZN on its own will not be sufficient for him. And therefore, it will count in his favor the fact that he has now quite a solid base within KwaZulu-Natal. But that must now spill over into the other provinces, and that is still very much unclear. The same applies, in a sense, to the other positions of the top 6 also. We don't have really a very good indication of what is the position of, let's say, the Secretary General or the Treasurer General or the Deputy Secretary General. These are all very important positions, but the focus is to a large extent just on the President and the Deputy President.
Sure. Interesting times, to use a cliche. Professor Dirk Kotze, always great getting your take. Really do appreciate it. Professor Kotze is a political analyst.